Hello everyone and welcome to this video about Shopware 6.6, what to expect and how to deal with it basically. My name is Niklas, I'm from Shopware and I'm part of the developer relations team. With me today I have Jonas and he is head of engineering platform. Hi Jonas.
Yes, hello also from my side.
So I have a few questions for you, as we discussed beforehand, actually, so no surprises there. But first question I want to start with, before we get into the whole 6.6 thing, what is platform? So you are head of engineering platform. What does it mean? What do you do?
Yeah, so platform is the department in our, basically a sub-department in our product department, where we take care of all the technical framework level stuff that builds a technical foundation for Shopware. So there's the core team that maintains the data abstraction layer, for example. But there's also the admin team or the storefront teams that build the technical foundation for those JavaScript clients for the core, basically. So all of that is the platform, and then above that we have also the features department, where the teams then build features on top of the technical foundation that we provide.
Okay, so you're basically the masters of the technical base, and then on top of that, other teams are building the things that are actually used by people using the API or the storefront on the administration. That sounds like a lot of communication you need to do between teams.
Yes, definitely. So, of course, we want to provide a platform that makes it easy to add new features and that is also future-proof for everything that's upcoming. And of course, that's not only internally for us, but also like externally for the whole ecosystem, because like you never know what exactly what kind of ideas the people out there in the community have and how to extend our platform.
Yeah, actually, we're building Shopware for the people out there. So that's true. So the first customer for your team basically is the developer, and other people are building features. That leads me to my next question. Is 6.6 a feature release?
No, not really. It might happen that it includes features like every normal minor release as well, but the main difference for in a major release is that we take the time and make some like technical cleanup in our basement, basically. Clean the old stuff that accumulated there up a little bit, and then ready for basically the next year to add new features to it.
Okay, so major releases are generally maintenance releases that clean up things and open up new things. And we will talk about this a little bit later on. But first, I want to talk about some highlights, some changes before we talk about why it is necessary to break things. So I say it now, all of this is detailed in a blog post about the technical changes, the platform changes in Shopware. It's in the description on YouTube here. And also there will be something about the features later on. Now, neither Jonas nor me are in the department that takes care of the feature descriptions, but there will be something down the line regarding that. Right now, we are very sure about the technical changes that will come up. That's why we talk about the technical changes today in this video. Okay, so before we talk about the highlights, or some of the highlights that need a little bit more explanation, but it makes sense to talk about in the video opposed to the blog post. Before we talk about that, a little bit about the timeline maybe first. The RC 6.6 comes out, or the release candidate comes out in January. Two questions. First, how long will it take, this release candidate phase? And also, what does it mean to be or to have a release candidate, for those who don't know that maybe?
Yeah, so we plan to have the release candidate out at the end of January this year. And that means that since then, everything that goes into the final release of the 6.6 version is basically like feature final. Every breaking change is in the first RC, so after that we don't break anything. And then we plan to have an 8-week release candidate phase out there. For like the ecosystem to check out the release candidate, report back if there are any issues with that, so that we can include bug fixes for upcoming release candidate or the final version, and of course to start working on compatibility with the new major version.
Okay, we are recording this at the end of November, so the release candidate will come out in about 2 months, and then there are additional 2 months until the end of the release candidate, and the whole time frame can be used to prepare yourself for the upcoming changes, prepare your extensions, your stores, whatever. And we will talk about how to do this a little bit later on. But I promised we will highlight some changes. So the changes I want to talk about a little bit, or I want to highlight one thing, Vue.js 3, because this might impact a lot of people. I'm not sure how much are you involved with Vue 3?
Honestly, I'm a PHP. I have
developer.
a PHP background or backend background. Not that much into the front end stuff, but of course I know a little bit about Vue and why we need to make this upgrade.
We have already a video out on this channel. I will link it in the description as well, or maybe in the info box somewhere here. There will be a link to my video with Sebastian, where we talked extensively about the Vue 3 update. Is there anything where you would say to people where maybe this could be interesting for you that you want to highlight now, or is it just like go watch the video?
It's go watch the video and go read the upgrade guide. That's also out there. Things that came a little bit after the video, where there's a detailed step-by-step guide, basically how to make your extensions and your projects also compatible with Vue 3.
I will also link this, but where do I find the upgrade guide in general? I think on GitHub, if I'm not mistaken.
It's on GitHub, but I also think in the docs.
In the documentation also. Okay, so at least on GitHub, but I will link it down below. Okay, one other thing, stock API changes. So there are a lot of things going on, and we will talk about this in general in a moment. And again, you have the blog post detailing it. But stock API changes is something where you need to think a little bit about. What are we talking about when we say stock API changes? What is changing? What is stock API? Tell me.
So we had a pretty opinionated way, I guess, how the stock is calculated inside the Shopware store. That did not match for every business case out there because there were other requirements, and it was not so easy to adapt like Shopware to your needs. So we made it a lot easier by simplifying also for 1 hour process that we use to calculate the stocks or when stock changes happen. So now stock is decreased when an order is placed, and the stock is increased again when the order might be cancelled.
And that's all there is to it. Because right now, can you describe the current situation for those who are not aware?
Yeah, because in the current situation, we don't only have one stock field that shows the current level of stock, but 2. One stock and the other is called available stock. And there's a little bit of back and forth going on between those 2 different counters. Basically, when you open an order, it's kind of in pending state. So on the one stock level, on the available stock, that amount is already decreased, but only if the order is then successful. It will be decreased from the normal stock field as well. So in this syncing back and forth is not necessary for every business case, or even make some problems.
Not for the majority of business cases, yeah. And you're right, it is problematic for a lot of people dealing with ERP systems, because the ERP system just wants to know what was deducted, basically. So, and also if things are updated and then an order is pending and it gets rewritten, things happen with stock so that you end up with more products in the store that you want to if your ERP system is not dealing correctly with this. And it's better how we do now. But still, when you say, okay, an order is placed, stock is deducted, an order is canceled, stock is increased, that sounds very rigid as well. Did we do something to alleviate this, to make it easier to implement your business case?
Yes, we support that on 2 levels. First thing is that it's now pretty easy to completely disable the stock calculation inside Shopware. That means if you have an ERP system that takes care of your stocks, fine, let it sync the stocks back into your shop and deactivate basically the stock calculation inside Shopware. The other thing is that it's also pretty easy now to customize it. So we've built an abstraction on how to change the stock for product and abstraction layer so that you can customize your store and really customize also your business rules. For example, react on different state change events and then deduct or increase the stock again and completely basically disable our handling inside Shopware so that you basically roll your own stock handling, and we provide easy APIs for you to do that.
Yeah. And you can combine the two, right? You can use the events and the abstraction together with the existing. Okay. Also, there is a very lengthy discussion or discussion request, basically an RFC, request for comment on GitHub, which is linked in the blog post. Also, we are doing quite a lot of these recently, and we plan to do this as long as the interest from the community is there. We post things or proposals on GitHub and ask for your comment. Sometimes it's not a proposal, but more like, we do this way. Is it a good thing or should we change it? But we will do it. So it's a request for comment, not a proposal. It's a request for comment. And you should definitely look it up on GitHub discussions. Right. And depending on how impactful this is, we will also put it in the Shopware Slack, so in the Shopware community Slack. So if you're not on the Shopware community Slack, go to slack.shopware.com and join the community. All right. So these were the 2 things I wanted to highlight. First, Vue.js will get updated to version 3. But we have also, and stock API chains, but we have also some minor things like Symfony 7, for example. And I was a little bit confused because there is Symfony 7 and 6.4, which are at the time of recording not yet released, but both are developed simultaneously. And what? Why?
Yes. So both are currently in development and in RC phase. So the first release candidate is already released, and they are scheduled to be released in November. So both of the versions. Symfony has a pretty interesting version in concept where they develop a long-term support version, so the last minor version of a release cycle together with the next major version as well. So from a feature perspective, the Symfony 7 and Symfony 6.4, so the last minor version in the Symfony 6 cycle, are identical in terms of features, but in Symfony 7 they also removed all the deprecations and all the backwards compatibility that was there in the 6.4 version. So basically Symfony 7 is Symfony 6.4 without all deprecations. So,
and the deprecations in this context mean the compatibility layer that allows you to use the old way of doing things, old APIs, stuff like this, which is interesting and leads me to another question. So now we are basically in the last part of the video, and it is about, why do we need to do so much work under the hood at Shopware? Why are we constantly breaking things? Why are things so bad? Oh, sorry, I'm not in Slack. No, actually people were not happy with releasing 6.6 and doing a lot of stuff under the hood, but we not only need to do that, but it is very beneficial. And maybe you can shed some light on this, why it is, why do we need so much technical work?
With our backwards compatibility promise, we basically, we promise that over a major cycle, we won't break any public API. And that means we add a lot of new features over a whole major cycle. I'm not sure if you count the number of features that were included from the first 6.5.0 release to now. Basically, there's a lot that we've added there.
And if I may add, public API is not referring to the HTTP API, but to not only, but to every way you interfere with the Shopware code, be it in apps based on the plugin system or based on the app system, themes, whatever. Everything you program against Shopware basically is an API.
Yes. Every interface that you can access from the outside, basically from your extension, is a public API for us. And of course, adding that amount of features to it also makes it necessary to change some APIs or to make just some APIs nicer to use, because now you have this new added feature and things may get easier with a new API, but you still have support the old API. So what we do in this whole major cycle, when we don't break anything, we'll add a lot of technical debt in terms of a backwards compatibility layer, where we put in effort to make sure that we can add the features that the new features that we want, but also at the same time still supporting the old API. And from time to time, it is necessary then to clean up basically and remove this added complexity for the backwards compatibility.
Yeah, and what we also do is we implement features to a certain point, because we know we can't implement it further without breaking stuff. So we hold it back until a new major is released, and then this feature gets developed further in the minor version that follows. So minor versions in general are feature versions, and we are building up technical debt to a point where we say, okay, now we feel it that we can't move that fast anymore, and we need to, because we need to adapt to a changing landscape in e-commerce, how it always is said. But what that means is just that we try to give you an advantage over the competition as much as possible in your field, and we need to break things for that. And we pack this into the major so that you get disturbed not so much. Still, it is a disturbance in your daily work out there. And a question that I have for you, Jonas, is, now we already talked about this, right? The time frame. The time frame is from the recording of this video, 2 month nothing, then 2 month RC, then release. Now, if we imagine the all-inclusive agency incorporated, right? They maintain shops. They have extensions in the app system. They have extensions in the plugin system. They have themes. They also have some private extensions for people. And oh, why not? They are hosting, right? So they are hosting shops. And they are, of course, using the Shopware SaaS and PaaS, everything. So these people have a problem. And if you are not one of these people, and maybe just a part of a subgroup of these people, I will tell you, not you, Jonas, but the people out there, what the problem is. Now, the problem is when you start updating your plugins right now, this is a lot of work. Imagine you have like 20, 30 plugins or even more. And then in February, you see, okay, things changed. I need to do all my work again. That is not a good thing to do from a business perspective. So, Jonas, do you have any advice on how to work with the 6.6 and updates in this sense?
Yeah, in general, for major updates, there are, for me, kind of two ways you can handle this as a agency. So one is a big bang, basically as you described, right for the next major and right before it, make your things compatible. The other thing is that you can also go piece by piece, because when we add the deprecations, we always find a way to make it forward compatible. That means, okay, you use an interface that we break in the next major version, but there's always a new version of that interface already. So you can already use the new stuff. And there's a special feature flag for every major version also that's basically named after the next upcoming major version. Mm-hmm. For example, when you have a CI pipeline for your extension, you can have a job that runs with this feature flag enabled, so you get an early hint when we edit a deprecation for the next major version.
So just to clarify that, because for you this is all clear, but a feature flag means that you have an environment variable, and if you set that, then Shopware behaves differently than it does normally. And the difference here is that you need to run the trunk version, I think. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the GitHub version from the trunk, and then you can set a feature flag 6.6 or whatever the next major will be. In this case, it is 6.6, spoiler. And then Shopware will behave 6.6 like. So your pipeline that you hopefully have for your plugin development will then break with this feature flag enabled if you use some interface that will be broken. I hope this was correct English. And then you can see early what will happen. And also, Jonas, you hinted at this, but it's not that everything breaks suddenly when the RC is released, but we are deprecating code in as common. So you can just look in your IDE, you can check out Shopware, look in the IDE, what is deprecated. So these are two ways to get an early alert what will change. Sorry for the interruption.
Yes, and the third way is that we also do deprecation logging. So when you have infrastructure, like you host infrastructure or you have access to the logs, there you also find the log information if you access some deprecated functionality. So you should get early hints of what needs to be changed. And it's not suddenly with the release of the release candidate that you're aware of that.
So the deprecations are already in the official versions. You just get this for free. Is this correct?
That is correct. And of course, we'll only make breaking changes that were announced, at least in the last minor version of the 6.5 cycle for the 6.6. So there will be no unannounced breaks.
Yeah. Now back to the question, when should I update? Is it wise to start now? When is there a feature freeze? How do I, just talk to me.
Yes, so there will be no kind of official feature freeze right now. That will only happen when the RC is released, as I said. So after the first release candidate, only bug fixes are allowed to be added to the release candidate or to the final version for the 6.6.0 release, basically. So that's the latest you should start with making your changes, your plugins compatible.
End of January then.
At the end of January, right? But you can also start right now, and maybe don't start right now immediately, but start right now assessing how you are affected and how much work it would be by, for example, creating a pipeline that runs with this feature flag and see how much fails and how much work probably there's in for you, so you can plan accordingly.
Yeah, and also when we do deprecations, you can be certain this will be, or almost you can be certain this will be not in the next major version. So you already know what's happening. It's no magic. There is no, So, okay. So we splitted the branch. This is maybe the last piece of information you need here. What do we do to the branch? Why did we split it? What did we split?
Yes, so we split it a 6.5 release branch basically for all the releases that might be coming in the 6.5 cycle. But that means that the trunk branch is now basically for 6.6 releases. So right now the branch is kind of in an unstable state, which means we can make breaking changes to it until the release candidate is then released, but also only the things we already announced over deprecations. So that is what's happening right now in the trunk, that we'll make the dependency updates like Symfony, like Vue.js, that we start removing all the deprecations that we have announced. So that is basically happening as we speak. But as said, you don't need to wait for all this work to be finished, because over the feature flag, you have the possibility to already opt in for the breaks that will be coming for the next major version. So you can easily test if you are affected and what breaks.
In the currently released version. So you would then go to github.com/shopware and then, github.com/shopware and then check out 6.5, look at the deprecation log, change the feature flag so you get the 6.6 deprecations in action, basically. And then when it's a little bit later in the year, maybe start checking out the trunk, which then will become the RC, which then will become the release. And as far as I'm aware, we are planning with 3 RCs at the moment, but we can't promise that this will happen that way, but we are roughly planning with 3 RCs, right?
Yeah, but it completely depends on external feedback that we get.
When we get nothing, there will be just 1. If we get a lot, it might be 4, but we are planning from experience with 3, which will then include bug fixes. So that means you can expect some bugs in the first one, because again, Shopware is a complex product. You are using it in very creative ways, which means you have the right setup where things can go wrong. We can't test for everything, although we try. Okay.
And also there, like the RC, the first release candidate probably is the right time to test those things, because then we have a lot of more time to really figure out if you have any issues with that, we can like figure out a fix for your cases. And it's a lot easier to have that than to have to fix the final version because you didn't test the release candidate beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. So the call to action here would be go to slack.shopware.com, join Slack, go into the channel feedback -RC -6_6, and then wait for things to happen. There are people already actively checking out the blog post, which you also should do, or even the trunk, or as we discussed, the whole feature flag stuff. Give us your feedback, because then we can give you the best and smoothest experience with the release candidate possible. Okay. I think that's everything for me. Jonas, do you have anything to add?
No, it was nice chatting with you, Niklas.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and insight with us. Yeah. And to everyone out there, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, slack.shopware.com. See you there.